Seattle, 1967. The room is not large. The floor is wooden, worn smooth at the center where feet have moved across it thousands of times. The walls carry the specific plainness of a working space. No decoration, no performance, nothing that doesn't serve a function. The air holds the clean, particular smell of a place where serious physical work happens daily. Polished wood, the faint metallic edge of exertion, the specific density of a room that has absorbed years of effort and never once been asked to look impressive. There are perhaps 12 people present. Students, observers, a man near the back wall who arrived 20 minutes ago in a uniform and has been standing with his arms loose at his sides, watching. Bruce Lee is in the center of the room. He is demonstrating something small, a redirection, a shift in weight that takes a force aimed at the center of the body and moves it sideways, off the line, so that what was meant to connect with something solid instead passes through empty air. He does it slowly enough that the room can follow the mechanics. Then he does it again at full speed. At full speed, the eye cannot find the moment it happens. One frame he is in the path of the force. The next frame, the force is passing through a space he was standing in a fraction of a second ago. The room is quiet in the specific way that rooms go quiet when people see something they cannot immediately explain. The officer near the back wall watches this. His arms are still loose at his sides. His expression is professionally neutral. But there is something happening in his eyes, a quality of attention that is different from curiosity. It is assessment. He is a man who has spent years evaluating situations, reading rooms, identifying the distance between what something appears to be and what it actually is. He is doing that now. He has not yet introduced himself. He will, in approximately 40 minutes, reach for his handcuffs and find them gone. But before that, before the empty ring, before the spinning cuffs, before the 7 words that will change the direction of his life, there is everything else, and everything else is where the real story lives. His name is not important to this story in the way names usually are. What is important is what he is, what he has built, what he depends on, what he believes about himself and about the world. Because none of it will survive the next 40 minutes intact. He has been on the force for 12 years. Seattle Police Department, 1967. He is in his mid-30s, physically capable in the way that 12 years of professional physical training produces. Not aesthetic capability, functional capability. The kind of strength and conditioning that comes from a body being required to perform under real pressure in real situations, repeatedly, over a long period of time. He is not the largest man in any room he enters, but he is, in almost every room he enters, the most prepared. He knows this about himself. It is not vanity. It is the accurate self-assessment of a man whose profession does not permit inaccuracy about his own capabilities. An officer who overestimates himself gets people hurt. He has seen it. He has spent 12 years calibrating his understanding of exactly what he can and cannot do, and adjusting his behavior accordingly. It is the discipline that keeps him and the people around him safe. His training covers a specific curriculum: defensive tactics, physical restraint, the management of resistance, how to move a body that does not want to be moved, how to control a situation where the other person is stronger, larger, more aggressive, or simply unwilling to comply. He has trained this curriculum to a level that most of his colleagues have not matched, because he has trained it past the point where it was required and into the territory where it became, quietly, a point of pride. And then there is the equipment. A duty belt in 1967 carries between 20 and 25 pounds of equipment distributed across the hips: firearm, baton, radio, spare ammunition, and on the right side, clipped to a specific ring, at a specific position, that his hand has found 10,000 times without conscious direction, his handcuffs. He knows those handcuffs the way he knows his own hands. Their exact weight, approximately 12 ounces, Smith & Wesson model, the standard issue for Seattle PD in this period. The specific sound they make when they shift on the ring, a small, dry, metallic click that he would identify in a noisy room without having to look. The temperature of the metal after a full shift in summer, warm at the center, cooler at the edges. He has used them in real situations, under real pressure, in circumstances where the difference between getting the cuffs on quickly and not getting them on quickly was not theoretical. In 12 years, nothing has ever left that belt without his knowledge. He would have told you it was simply true. A duty belt is not something that moves without the officer knowing. He would have told you it was simply true. The weight redistribution alone would be noticeable. 12 ounces shifting from one position is a change that the hips register automatically, the way a person wakes when a sound in their sleep reaches a certain threshold. It doesn't require attention, it is below attention. It is the body's own surveillance system running constantly, reporting anything that changes. He has never had reason to question this. He is standing against the back wall of Bruce Lee's school, with his arms loose at his sides, 12 minutes from finding out that everything he knows about his own awareness has a boundary he has never located, because nothing has ever reached it before. Now go back further, because the other man in this room did not arrive here by accident, and what his hands can do by 1967 is the result of a specific accumulation that begins not in Seattle, but on a rooftop in Kowloon, with a man named IP Man and a boy who kept showing up. Bruce Lee arrives in Seattle in 1959. He is 18 years old, the son of a Cantonese opera singer, born in San Francisco during a touring stop, and raised in Hong Kong in a household that moved between cultures the way water moves, finding the available space and filling it. He has been fighting since he was a child, not because he was violent, because Hong Kong in the 1950s, for a boy who looked like him and carried his specific combination of identities, was a place where the question of fighting was not always optional. But fighting is not what shaped his hands. What shaped his hands was IP Man. Wing Chun under IP Man is not a striking art in the way that most people understand striking arts. It is, at its deepest level, a sensitivity art. The techniques, the chain punches, the low kicks, the structural efficiency that allows a smaller body to redirect a larger one, these are the visible surface. Beneath them is a training methodology built around one central question: can you feel what the other person is about to do before they do it? Chi Sao, sticky hands, the drill that is the core of Wing Chun's training, the practice that IP Man returns to again and again, with every student, because it cannot be rushed and it cannot be faked, and it cannot be learned from observation. It must be felt. Two practitioners stand close, forearms touching, and they move, not trying to hit each other, not trying to defend, simply maintaining contact while pressure shifts and changes, reading each shift through the skin, through the bones, through something below the bones that is harder to name. What Chi Sao trains, over months and years of daily practice, is not a technique, it is a state of the nervous system, a condition of receptivity so refined that the body begins to respond to incoming information before the conscious mind has registered it. The hands move to the correct position before the decision to move them has been made. The practitioner doesn't react. The practitioner has already responded, and the reaction is the conscious mind catching up to what the body has already handled. Bruce Lee practices Chi Sao from the age of 13. By the time he arrives in Seattle, he has 6 years of this training. By 1967, he has 14 years, but something has been added to the foundation. In Seattle, and then in Oakland, and then in Los Angeles, Bruce Lee does something that most martial artists of his generation do not do. He stops training only what he has been taught, and begins training what he can verify. He reads Western boxing manuals with the specific attention of a man looking for principles, not techniques. He reads fencing theory. He reads biomechanics. He reads philosophy, not for comfort, but for methodology. How do you think about the body? How do you think about force? How do you think about the distance between two people and the information that distance contains? And he develops something that his students notice but struggle to describe, a quality of physical attention that operates in the opposite direction from what most people practice. Most people train how to apply force. Bruce Lee trains how to apply the absence of force, contact so light, so calibrated, so perfectly below the threshold of the recipient's awareness that it registers as background noise and is filtered out by the brain before it reaches conscious attention. He practices this the way he practices everything daily, against resistance, with obsessive precision. His students describe demonstrations where he touches the back of a hand and the person does not know until they look. Not because the touch is fast, because it is slow and precise and calibrated to stay below the specific pressure threshold that triggers tactile signal to the brain. He is, by 1967, operating at a level of physical sensitivity that has no equivalent in any training tradition he has encountered. He has built something new, not by discarding what he learned from IP Man, but by taking the core principle of Chi Sao and extending it until it can operate without the other person's knowledge. He can feel you before you feel him. He can touch you before you know he is touching you. And he can take something from your belt in the middle of a conversation without your hands, your hips, your trained professional surveillance system, or any part of your 12 years of careful self-calibration telling you that anything has changed. The officer arrives at 4750 University Way on a Tuesday evening in 1967. He comes, officially, in a community liaison capacity, one of a small number of initiatives in the late 1960s where officers were encouraged to engage with community organizations, understand what was happening in different neighborhoods, build relationships that might make the work of policing less adversarial. Unofficially, he comes because he has heard the name Bruce Lee in 2 different conversations in the past month, and both times the person saying the name had the specific expression of someone describing something they couldn't fully account for. He is curious. He is not naive about his curiosity. He knows he is here partly to evaluate something, and he is comfortable with that. Evaluation is part of his professional equipment. Evaluation is part of his professional equipment, not the people, the floor. It is worn smooth in the center, in a way that tells him how much movement has happened here over how many years. A floor speaks, if you know how to listen to it, about the seriousness of what has been practiced on it. This floor is serious. The second thing he notices is that nobody in the room reacts to his uniform the way people usually react to his uniform. There is no stiffening, no change in posture, no subtle performance of normalcy that people produce when they notice a police officer entering a space. The students, there are 11 of them, different sizes, different ages, at least 3 different racial backgrounds on a single floor in 1967 Seattle, which is itself a thing worth noting. Simply continue what they are doing. One of them glances at him briefly, nods in a way that suggests he is welcome to stay, and returns his attention to his training partner. And then Bruce Lee turns around. He is smaller than the officer expected. The reputation, in the way reputations work, had generated a physical image that the reality does not match. Something larger, something more obviously imposing. What the officer sees instead is a young man in his mid-20s, lean and compact, 135 pounds distributed across a 5'7" frame, dark eyes, completely still in the way that very few people are completely still. Not the stillness of someone waiting, but the stillness of someone who has no energy escaping in directions it isn't needed. Bruce Lee looks at him, not at his uniform, at him. The officer has been looked at by a great many people in 12 years of wearing a uniform. Most of them look at the uniform first and the person second, if at all. Bruce Lee looks at the person, directly, without aggression, without performance. The way you look at something you are genuinely interested in understanding. He crosses the room without ceremony, extends his hand. They introduce themselves. The conversation begins. It begins, as these conversations often do, with politeness. The officer asks questions, measured, intelligent questions, the kind that come from a man who is genuinely trying to understand something rather than confirm what he already believes. What is the system? How long have you been teaching? What kind of students do you get here? Bruce Lee answers each question directly. No embellishment, no performance, no attempt to impress. He demonstrates small things when words aren't sufficient. A redirection, a weight shift, the mechanics of a block that produces an outcome disproportionate to its visible effort. Each demonstration is precise and economical. Nothing extra. The officer watches carefully. He is being honest with himself. What he is seeing is technically interesting. The efficiency is real. The principles are sound. He can evaluate physical competence because he has spent 12 years developing his own, and he recognizes the genuine article when he sees it. But there is a question forming at the back of his professional mind. It is a fair question, the question that any serious practitioner should ask when encountering a system outside their own training. The question of application, of what happens when the controlled environment of a school floor meets the specific, chaotic, unpredictable reality of an actual confrontation where the other person has not agreed to be a training partner. He raises the question. Politely, professionally, the way an experienced man expresses genuine skepticism without aggression. A single, well-constructed sentence about the difference between demonstrating a technique under cooperative conditions and applying a technique under real pressure. He is making a good point. He knows he is making a good point. He has seen in 12 years the gap between what martial arts schools demonstrate and what actually works when a situation deteriorates past the point of cooperation. The gap is real. It has cost people. Bruce Lee hears the question. Something in his expression changes. Not offense, not amusement. Something quieter than either. His students, the three nearest to him, notice the change. They have seen it before. They know what it precedes. Bruce Lee takes a step, a single, casual step, the natural shift in position of a man adjusting his stance during a conversation. He is now approximately 4 feet from the officer. The conversation continues. Nobody watches Bruce Lee's left hand. 4 feet. That is the distance between them now. 4 feet of wooden floor, worn smooth by years of serious work. 4 feet of air in a room that smells of polished wood and effort. 4 feet between a man who has spent 12 years learning to control situations and a man who has spent 14 years learning to operate below the threshold of what control can detect. The conversation continues. The officer is mid-sentence. He is making his point, the one about application, about the gap between demonstration and reality, about what happens when a situation deteriorates past the point of cooperation. It is a good point, and he is making it well. His hands move slightly as he speaks, the small unconscious gestures of a man who thinks with his whole body. The way people do when they are engaged and honest about what they are saying. Bruce Lee listens. His eyes are on the officer's face. They have not moved from the officer's face. They will not move from the officer's face for the next 90 seconds. His left hand is at his side, relaxed, fingers slightly open, the natural position of a hand that is not doing anything. There is nothing to look at, nothing to notice. The hand of a man standing in a room having a conversation. Nobody is looking at it. This is the thing about sub-threshold contact that takes years to understand and longer to execute. The human skin is not a single detection system. It is a collection of overlapping systems, pressure receptors, vibration receptors, temperature receptors, each with its own threshold, its own sensitivity range, its own minimum signal requirement before it fires and sends information upward toward consciousness. Most of these systems are extraordinarily sensitive in isolation. In combination, under normal daily conditions, they are managed by the brain through a process of continuous filtering. The body is always being touched by something, always receiving tactile information from clothing, from air movement, from the surfaces it is in contact with. If every signal reached consciousness, the noise would be unmanageable, so the brain filters. It decides, below the level of decision, what is signal and what is background, what needs attention and what can be ignored. Bruce Lee has spent years studying this filter, not academically, physically. He has trained his fingers to operate below the threshold at which the filter trips, to make contact, to apply force, to move objects, all within the range of sensation that the brain has pre-classified as background noise, not worth waking for, not worth reporting upward. The leather of a duty belt, against the hip of a man who has worn it for 12 years, falls into that category. The belt is always there. Its weight is constant. Its temperature is the ambient temperature of the room modified by body heat. Its pressure against the hip is steady and familiar. It is background. The brain stopped reporting it years ago. What this means, practically, is that the ring on that belt, the specific ring where the handcuffs live, is surrounded by a zone of sensory silence. The officer's awareness does not patrol it. It doesn't need to. Nothing has ever disturbed it. Until now. Bruce Lee's left hand rises. The movement is within the range of normal conversational gesture. A slight lift, the kind of unconscious arm movement that accompanies listening, the body's physical confirmation that it is present and engaged. The officer's brain registers it as listener shifting weight, background, ignore. The fingers make contact with the leather of the duty belt. Contact pressure below the vibration receptor threshold. The belt does not shift. The weight distribution across the officer's hips does not change. There is no sound. There is no temperature differential. There is nothing for any of the officer's overlapping detection systems to report. The officer continues speaking. Bruce Lee nods. His fingers locate the handcuff ring. The cuffs are hanging in their standard position, a position his fingers have never touched before, and yet navigate without hesitation, because he has spent months training this specific geometry on his own belt, on training equipment, on every configuration of leather and metal he could find, until the location is as familiar to his fingertips as his own face. The officer gestures with his right hand, emphasizing a word. Bruce Lee's fingers close around the chain link connecting the two cuffs. Not the body of the cuffs, the chain. Lighter, less likely to shift the ring, less likely to produce the metallic click of metal on metal that the officer would identify in complete darkness. The officer takes a breath, moving toward his next sentence. The handcuffs move, Not lifted, not pulled, transferred along a path that follows the natural arc of the arm movement that preceded it, so that the motion of the cuffs leaving the ring is absorbed into the motion of Bruce Lee's hand returning to a listening position. The weight leaves the ring over a period of approximately 1.4 seconds. Not quickly, slowly. Slow is below threshold. Fast creates vibration. Slow is silence. The officer begins his next sentence. Bruce Lee's left hand is back at his side. The handcuffs are in it. The conversation has not paused. The officer's hands are still moving. His eyes are still on Bruce Lee's face. His hips have registered nothing. His belt still feels exactly as it has felt for 12 years. Constant, familiar background ignored. Then Bruce Lee takes a step back. One step. Natural. The movement of a man creating a slight distance during a conversation. The kind of spatial adjustment people make without thinking when they want to signal a transition, a pause, a breath between thoughts. The step takes him from 4 feet to 6. During the step, the handcuffs move from his left hand to his right. During the transfer, they find his right index finger. He begins to spin them, slowly. The way a man spins something he has been holding for a long time. The officer finishes his sentence. There is a pause, the natural pause of a conversation finding its next breath. He reaches for his handcuffs. His hand closes around empty metal. What happens in the officer's body in the next 3 seconds is not dramatic. That is the important thing to understand. It is not a flinch. It is not a gasp. It is not the performance of shock that the word shock usually implies. It is something quieter and more complete. The specific physical response of a highly trained, carefully calibrated nervous system encountering an input it has no category for. His hand feels the empty ring once. His hand feels it again. The double check, the involuntary repetition that the brain demands when the first result is unacceptable. The ring is there. The ring is always there. The ring is empty. His eyes drop to his belt. He sees what his hand has already reported. His eyes come up. Bruce Lee is standing 6 feet away. The handcuffs are spinning on his right index finger. Slowly, casually, the overhead light in the room catches the metal on every rotation. A small, regular flash, once per second, the most ordinary thing in the world. Bruce Lee has not stopped looking at the officer's face. He has not smiled. He has not changed his expression. He is looking at the officer the way he has been looking at him since they began talking, directly, without performance, with the specific quality of attention that the officer noticed when Bruce Lee first crossed the room, and has not been able to fully account for since. The room is silent. The 11 students have stopped what they were doing, not because they were instructed to, because the quality of what is happening in the center of the room has produced the specific kind of silence that people move into instinctively when they recognize that something significant is occurring. Nobody speaks. The handcuffs spin, 1 rotation, 2, 3. Then Bruce Lee speaks, 7 words. No rise in volume, no emphasis, no performance, no trace of triumph or amusement. Delivered the way a man states a fact that he considers important but not urgent. You should keep these closer to you. The silence after those 7 words is different from the silence before them. The silence before them was the silence of shock, of a nervous system encountering an unclassifiable input and pausing all non-essential processing while it attempts to resolve the error. It was involuntary silence, the silence that happens to you. The silence after is chosen. The officer chooses it, not because he has nothing to say, because he is, for the first time in a very long time, in a situation where the available responses are insufficient. He knows what he would say if a colleague made a mistake. He knows what he would say if a civilian surprised him. He knows the professional vocabulary for almost every human situation he has encountered in 12 years. This situation is outside that vocabulary. He looks at Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee looks back. The handcuffs are still spinning. 1 more rotation. Then Bruce Lee's hand closes around them, and the spinning stops, and he extends his arm and holds them out, palm up, waiting. The officer steps forward. He takes the handcuffs. He clips them back to the ring, the same position, the same 12-ounce weight redistributed across his hip, exactly as it has been distributed for 12 years. He hears the click of the ring closing. He has heard that sound 10,000 times. In this room, in this silence, it is the loudest thing he has ever heard. Not because it is loud, because everything around it is so completely still. He looks at Bruce Lee. He says 1 word. How? Not, how did you do that? Not when did it happen, not I didn't feel anything, just the single syllable, stripped of everything except the genuine question inside it. The word of a man who has set down every professional reflex that would help him avoid asking it. Bruce Lee looks at him for a moment. Then he says, "Come back on Thursday. Wear something you can move in. That is all. No explanation, no demonstration of the principle, no lecture on subthreshold contact or sensory filtering, or the years of training that produced what the officer just experienced. Simply an invitation, delivered with the specific economy of a man who knows that the explanation is not the point. The experience is the point, and the experience has already happened. Everything else is Thursday." The officer leaves the school at 8:23 in the evening. He sits in his car for 11 minutes before starting the engine. Not because he is distressed, not because he is angry. He sits because he is doing what he does when he encounters something he needs to think through carefully. He gives it space. He has learned in 12 years that the instinct to immediately resolve discomfort leads to bad decisions. Sometimes the correct response to something you don't understand is to sit with it long enough to understand it before you decide what it means. He thinks about the belt, about the ring, about the 12 years of accumulated tactile certainty that told him, as reliably as any instrument he has ever used, that nothing on that belt moved without his knowledge. He does not try to explain what happened. He tries to be honest about what it means. What it means is this: there is a level at which things happen that his training has not equipped him to detect. Not because his training is poor, his training is excellent, but because his training was built for a specific range of inputs, and what he encountered tonight was outside that range, not slightly outside, completely outside, in a direction he didn't know the range had. He starts the engine. He goes home. He does not tell his colleagues what happened, not because he is ashamed. He will understand later that shame had nothing to do with it. He doesn't tell them because he doesn't yet have the language for it, and he has enough professional self-respect to not describe something he doesn't understand using words that would make it sound smaller than it was. Thursday comes. He arrives at 4750 University Way at 6 in the evening. He is wearing plain clothes, dark trousers, a plain shirt, flat shoes. He has left the belt in his car. He has left the uniform in his car. He has left, as deliberately as he can manage, the 12 years of professional identity that the uniform represents. He is not an officer tonight. He is a man who encountered something he could not explain and is honest enough to find out why. He is the largest person in the room. He is also, within 4 minutes of the class beginning, the most comprehensively lost. Bruce Lee's students move with a fluency that the officer cannot yet pass, cannot yet find the logic of, cannot yet locate the principle underneath. They are smaller than him, most of them. Several are younger. At least 2 are, by any conventional physical measure, less imposing. They execute techniques with an ease that is not the ease of simplicity, but the ease of something that has been done so many times that the effort has gone underground, become invisible, left only the result showing at the surface. He is a beginner. After 12 years of professional training, in a room with people he could physically overpower without difficulty, he is completely and unambiguously a beginner. Bruce Lee does not acknowledge the handcuff incident. He does not reference it, does not use it as a teaching story, does not allow it to be the thing that defines the officer's position in the room. He simply begins to teach him from the ground up, from first principles, with the specific and unhurried patience of a man who has taken apart his own assumptions enough times to understand what the process requires of the person going through it. The first thing he teaches him is not a technique, it is a quality of attention. Stand here, feel the floor under your feet. Not think about the floor, feel it. The specific weight of your body distributed across the specific surface of the floor beneath you. Feel where the weight is concentrated and where it is absent. Feel what changes when you breathe. The officer stands. He feels the floor. He feels, for the first time in years, the specific weight of his own body, not as an instrument, not as a professional tool, but as a physical fact that has been operating below his attention for 12 years, doing its work quietly, waiting for someone to ask it what it knows. He trains for 3 months. The way he enters a room now, there is a quality to it that his colleagues cannot name but register instinctively as different. He reads spaces differently. He stands differently. The weight distributed in a way that is both more relaxed and more available than before. The specific paradox that Bruce Lee returns to again and again in his teaching. The body is most capable when it is least effortful. He responds to tension differently. When a situation begins to escalate, he does not match the escalation. He moves below it, finds the lower frequency, the quieter register, and operates from there. The result, in practical terms, is that situations that previously required physical intervention begin to resolve at the verbal level. Not always, but more often than before, more often than can be explained by coincidence. He does not speak about Bruce Lee to his colleagues. He does not explain the change. He does not have the language for it yet. And more than that, he understands instinctively that the explanation would not be the point. The point is in the floor under his feet on Thursday evenings. The point is in the quality of attention that Bruce Lee teaches him, week after week, with the same unhurried precision that produced the handcuff moment, which was not, the officer now understands, a demonstration of speed, or of deception, or of any single isolatable skill. It was a demonstration of what consistent, serious, daily attention to the body produces over a long enough period of time. He keeps the handcuff incident, not as a wound, not as a story to tell, as a marker, the specific point in time when his education actually began, as opposed to the point when his training started. The distinction, he understands now, is everything. Training is the acquisition of capability. Education is the expansion of the boundary of what you know you don't know. He had been training for 12 years. He began his education on a Tuesday evening in 1967, in a room that smelled of polished wood and effort, when his hand closed around empty metal and his eyes came up and found a pair of handcuffs spinning slowly in the light. Here is what the story is actually about. Not the fingers, not the belt, not the mechanics of sub-threshold contact, or the specific weight of Smith & Wesson handcuffs, or the geometry of a duty ring. Those are the surface of the story. The surface is interesting, but the surface is not where the meaning lives. The meaning lives in what the officer does when he looks up. He has two options. Everyone who encounters the edge of what they know has exactly two options. The first is to step back, to find a way to make what happened fit inside what you already believe, to locate the explanation that preserves the structure, to file the anomaly somewhere it won't disturb the foundations. This is the most common response. It is not a character failure, it is a survival instinct. The structures we build to understand the world are expensive. Dismantling them is not a small thing. The second option is to step forward. The officer steps forward. That is the whole story. Everything else, the handcuffs, the spinning, the 7 words, the Thursday classes, the colleagues who notice a change they cannot name, everything else is the consequence of that single decision to step toward the edge rather than away from it. Bruce Lee wrote, in one of his notebooks, that the usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness. You cannot fill what is already full. The officer had a full cup. 12 years of training, professional confidence, earned certainty about his own capabilities and the capabilities of the world around him. Every one of those years had added something to the cup. None of them had emptied it. One Tuesday evening, in 4 feet of space, in 90 seconds of conversation, Bruce Lee emptied it. And the officer was honest enough and courageous enough and intellectually serious enough to hold the empty cup out and say, "Fill it." That is what mastery does when it is real. It does not intimidate. It does not diminish. It does not take something from you without offering something back. It shows you the edge of what you know, quietly, precisely, without drama, and it waits to see what you do next. Some people step back. Some people come back on Thursday. The question this story leaves, the one that has no answer except the one you provide with your own behavior, is not about Bruce Lee. It is not about handcuffs or duty belts or the specific mechanics of sub-threshold touch. The question is this: somewhere in your life right now, there is an empty ring, something you are certain you are holding, something that has already moved without you knowing. The moment when you reach for it and find it gone is coming. It may have already happened, and you haven't looked down yet. When you look up and see who has it, do you step back, or do you come back on Thursday?